Packers podcast. Need to start changing that intro pretty soon. I mean, we're 6 episodes deep now. Maybe not the newest, still your favorite. With me again is Trevor Land and Luke Reimer. Janet is dealing with some stuff that's much more important than this podcast right now. So we're with her. But joining us instead of Janet, looks slightly different than Janet, I would say, is Kyle Senra. More facial hair than Janet, for sure. Kyle, former Flurry sports writer, also has Going for Two podcast working over there. He has a Full Press Packers podcast, which I have told a couple people that I am sort of crediting for the start of this podcast. I was a guest on your podcast last year. And I'm like, if I get free time, I think I should probably just start one of my own as well. And here we are. And now returning the favor, Kyle, you're coming on our show. Hello, how are you?
Welcome. Well, glad to be here, Zach, Luke, Trevor. Nice to meet you both, and looking forward to having a good discussion.
Yeah, it should be a good time. This is honestly, I don't know how you guys feel. This is my favorite time of the year for NFL stuff. If I'm playing Madden, I don't play Madden much anymore because it sucks. But if I'm doing Madden and I want to build a team, like free agency stuff's my favorite. Draft is second favorite. So back to back here. This is the stuff I love. As a Packer fan, this is usually a sad time of year, so I'm hoping something changes. We're getting close to the positive line, I guess, for a cap space. So maybe something's going to give this year. I don't know. Last show, we talked about the franchise tag a little bit, and as predicted, we did not use it. Adam Schefter, though, is reporting that the Packers are going to try and re-sign Aaron Jones just as a free agent, just see what the market does. Kyle, we've been talking about Aaron Jones quite a bit. I think our opinions on whether or not he should come back or what we should do with him are pretty well stated. I'm actually interested what your thought is on going after Jones, bringing Jones back in free agency.
I mean, ideally, you'd love to have Jones. I think the running's great, obviously rushing touchdowns, but his ability as a receiver from the backfield is really the aspect that not just the hands. I mean, obviously great, but his speed and athleticism, he can really get downfield rather quickly, and if he's covered by a linebacker, that's quite a mismatch. So that's as much as I do like AJ Dillon, I was definitely on the more positive side of that particular draft pick last year. There's others in the first 3 rounds, maybe not so much, but he doesn't quite have that next level explosive speed that Jones does as a receiver. So that's considering the running back room would be now, that's not there. So that's the one aspect I think that they would really miss Jones. But at a certain point, as you mentioned, they're still not in positive cap space. Like they can't really afford it if, what they were reporting, they were going to make him a top 5 running back is what they offered him maybe about a month ago, and he turned that down. So I know we were talking on the Full Press Packers pod, and my co-host Jesse and I, we don't think the Packers are going higher than that. I mean, if that was probably close to what their final offer is going to be. So as much as this tweet saying that they're going to try, I don't know how hard they'll try. So I expect he will be on a different team, but we'll see.
I just don't know. I honestly have no idea what the running back market is this year, because the cap is in a tight spot for so many teams, and there's so many good players available. Luke, Trevor, what's your guys' thoughts? I have no idea what a running back can earn this year. My initial thoughts were it's probably going to be a big contract for 1 or 2 years. I would expect super short-term deals this year. But do either of you have any lean? Do you think Aaron Jones is going to get top 5 money from somebody?
I feel like he might, just based off of, having, he led the league in touchdowns 2 years ago. Obviously, Packers seem to pass more this year, so it might be a little bit of a letdown. But I still think that a lot of people know who Aaron Jones is. A lot of people like that both, Kyle, you mentioned, like the both running and receiving ability that Jones brings. I feel like some teams will think of him as like a spark plug to an offense. Maybe it was like a 1-2 punch, kind of what we were doing with him and Jamal Williams. But I would imagine bottom feeder like Jacksonville or someone who's going to grab a quarterback right away might grab him to jumpstart their offense. I know they have James Robinson, but a team like that it might grab Aaron Jones to help jumpstart their offense or help get a young quarterback into the swing of things.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be top 5, and I think it's because I look at who's left in this free agent market, and I don't see. I mean, really, the only name that isn't running on one knee that's big um, is Kenyon Drake. Really, James Conner's in there too, but Kenyon Drake did not look good this season. He actually looked pretty bad. James Conner, obviously, he's a big one, but his injury concerns precede him as well. So I think somebody's going to spend a lot of money on him because, like you said, Luke, there are a lot of teams that have a lot of money. Miami's interested. They have $33 million in cap space. The Jaguars, Patriots, they're both at $70 million. Jets, $69 million. So there are definitely some teams that have the money to do it. I think they're just going to say, yeah, why not, and throw a lot of money at them. And, to your point, Kyle, I think the Packers are going to try, but, how much can they really negotiate with where they are right now? So I agree. I don't really see how you can get much of a push for Aaron Jones anyways.
And I expect whatever team signs him is probably going to maybe use him more from a snap perspective than the Packers did, right? I mean, it doesn't really make much sense for the Packers to pay $10 million to someone that they're only going to use maybe 55, 60% of the time. So that's also the aspect. We know how Matt LaFleur likes to divide that playing time with the running back. So why pay a guy like a workhorse if you're not going to use him like a workhorse?
Right. And just looking at the salaries right now, if he is going to be a top 5 paid guy, we're talking north of $12 million, which, my opinion on paying running backs is very well known. Like, I just think it's a waste of money anyway. But $12 million is wild. Like, $12 million we could spend on 2 very good defensive players. So, yeah, I can't imagine the Packers go after Aaron Jones too hard. If they do, then we'll have a lot more of like angry compilations of Zach Bruner on the Lombardi Sweep podcast because I'm going to lose my mind if we do that. If we sign him for 10 plus, we're done. I don't think we have any chance.
At $12 million, they could probably get Lindsley.
Yeah.
They could just keep him.
His calculated market value, according to Sport Rack, is $14.6 million. I don't think he's going to get that from anybody. But if that's the average, and granted it's Sport Rack, but I mean, you can't do anything there.
I just got a quick question I wanted to ask you guys as far as we're talking about running backs here. Would you guys rather have a running back who stays on the field all 3 downs, like a Saquon Barkley, maybe not that great of a player, or would you rather have like a split backfield like Williams?
I guess for me, it's a cop-out answer. I think it's completely dependent on the player. So, I mean, stupid answer already. But, like, there's some running backs who fully get better as the game goes on. Like, they need to find a rhythm. They need to wear the defense down. Once they get a hit a few times, fourth quarter, they start seeing better. I think Jamal Williams is actually one of those players. He just was in a position where you can't just run him to the ground. I think Saquon Barkley is one of those players, even though he gets hurt every chance he gets. I think Todd Gurley was one of those players. People like that. Personally, I would much rather have the New England Patriots style of running things where people specialize in one type of thing, and we just put them into that role. Maybe this week James White gets a role. Maybe this week Rex Burkhead goes off. Maybe Brandon Bolden gets 4 touchdowns because there's one D tackle that plays a little light on his back feet. Stuff like that. That's the way I would personally do it. I think it's more of a chess move than a checkers move.
I'll be less on the fence. I think the formula that Matt LaFleur's had, the real split backfield, the real 40-60 split. I mean, they've won games with it. I mean, they're 26-6 over the last 2 regular seasons, but I guess that goes up to 28-8 if you include the playoffs. I look at the Cleveland Browns, the success they had. A guy like Chubb, probably, I think, Zach, he would probably fit your definition of the guy you would make a workhorse and give every carry. Yet the Browns didn't do that, and he seemed, I think he's incredibly efficient no matter what, but it didn't seem to affect him that much. Like he seemed to almost thrive in the fact that he wasn't getting every carry. So I think you maybe have to pay guys less that way, and it probably makes for a better return on investment. So I would lean on, I do like this style of split backfield rather than pay up for a McCaffrey Cook level running back. Go with the guys on the rookie contracts and maybe bring back Jamal Williams here to complement AJ Dillon, because Williams is a good pass catcher too. Not the same speed as Aaron Jones, but he still has the hands and can run routes pretty well too, and a great pass protector. That might be he might be one of the best pass protectors among the free agent running backs coming in, and that might be something that the Packers prioritize to keep him.
Yeah, I'd go split backfield. I won't be on the fence either. I'm kind of looking at the past Super Bowls. Obviously, there's more than that. It's not just about the teams that won the Super Bowl, but I'm looking at the last time a team won the Super Bowl that had, one guy, like one guy, like nobody else seeding carries. You probably have to go back to 2014 when the Seahawks beat the brakes off of the Broncos. It seems like there aren't a lot of teams that won the Super Bowl that have an elite runner. Granted, you don't have to be an elite runner to get the most carries, but the New England's like Zach, like you brought up, and Kansas City lately has gone to kind of split backfield. It just seems like what works now, and especially when you have a guy like Dillon from the Packers' point of view, if you can bring him in fresh in the cold, that hurts. I don't know who's going to want to tackle him, and being able to flip those guys in and out just seems most effective to me.
I think that's fair. I think that speaks more to just not paying the running back position, more so the role that they use them in. But I think they go hand in hand as well. Like I would much rather get a rookie running back, run them 300 carries than, after a few years, throw them to the dumpster, let somebody else sign them. That's basically what we're going to do with Aaron Jones, and I love that strategy. I hope the Miami Dolphins love him, because it's not going to last very long. Yeah. But so I think we're probably not going to go after Aaron Jones, but I think we should probably talk about people who we think they should go after. Look at that for a segue. Let's talk about the offense, though, like we were just speaking of. I think we should probably just go around and say ideally who the Packers should go after. As we talked about in the beginning, not a lot of cap space. So, yeah, it would be great to sign Kenny Golladay. That would be awesome. Don't think it's going to happen. Unless Kenny Golladay really loves Aaron Rodgers, or boy, he just loves the small city of Green Bay, which I've never heard any NFL player say, but maybe it's possible. But Luke, you can start us off here. Is there one offensive free agent that you are hoping the Packers to target?
Yeah, I got one in mind. I'll just say that I know there would be one player who would like a small area of Green Bay where he can't get in trouble, who just caught a touchdown from Johnny Manziel. I mentioned him many times in the past, but that's okay. The Saints just released Emmanuel Sanders. We talked about on our fantasy football show, me, Zach, Trevor, we talked about, I talked about Emmanuel Sanders a lot. I absolutely love him as a receiver. I think he's a perfect, number 2 guy. I think he's good enough to, take over games if Devontae Adams, ends up getting double, triple teamed, have a safety shaded to his side. I think Emmanuel Sanders sees a lot of single coverage if he comes to the Packers. And he's a veteran guy. I feel like he's not going to ask for a lot of money. He already has his Super Bowl wins, his Super Bowl appearances. What's more than, coming to Green Bay on a deal, not looking for a lot of money, trying to help get Green Bay back to glory.
I don't hate it. I love Emmanuel Sanders. To your point, I think he is still, all he does is win everywhere he goes. So I like him. Sorry, Trevor, what were you going to say?
Yeah, he's 34. So, obviously that's not saying he's done, but for a lot of teams that need a, very good receiver to kind of make up for quarterbacks, or a guy who's got a lot of explosiveness, he's still got it. Don't get me wrong, but, he's not going to be one of those top targets that people are looking at. And I think he fits in perfectly with Green Bay. He turned us down once. What are the odds he does it again, right? His choice didn't work out the first time, so the most logical scenario is to come to Green Bay, and he knows he can win here. He knows he can carve out a role. I just feel like it's a good match, and like you said, you can get him for cheap.
And would it be the best quarterback he's ever played with? Sorry,
100%.
Peyton.
Yeah.
I would assume so. I don't know.
Drew
Brees'
Manning
noodle
may be the
arms
only one that
is
even
great.
comes close, I think. But
Yeah.
even then, like Peyton Manning at that point of his career, mentally, yeah, but physically, certainly not where Rodgers is. And I mean, I don't really like Drew Brees, so.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Get the Drew Brees Center going.
Okay, good. I always do that on every podcast I'm on. But yeah, I think, certainly I like that call. And I think to stick with that idea of, a 30-year-old wide receiver, that, once you get to that age, teams see that and the value drops. I wonder if they can get Marvin Jones. And then, obviously probably can't afford Galladay, but I wonder if they can poach Jones from the division rival. Fills all the roles, kind of like Sanders. You can kind of trust him anywhere. I suppose you could play Marvin Jones in the slot. I know it's not something he's necessarily accustomed to throughout his career, but I feel like they can move him around. He's fast enough to maybe get some jet sweep type things too. How Matt LaFleur likes to use that. So I think Curtis Samuel is probably the ideal fit for that. But again, that's probably out of the price range. Marvin Jones probably more physically possible.
Trevor, I know you want to talk about Marvin Jones. Go ahead.
I love Marvin Jones. I think he's amazing. It's just, I kind of look at him in this free agent class, and I think if you take value into perspective, I think he's a top 3 ad, because people are going to overpay for the Jujus. They're going to take risks on Antonio Brown with his mental, who knows what he's going to do. He might quit on your team next day, but for the value, Marvin Jones is so underrated. He is efficient. I mean, he's in a dumpster fire Detroit, and he can look good. I mean, that in itself is an accomplishment. So I love him. I think he'll be getting a little too much, just because people saw him without Galladay. But hey, if we could get him, that's a great signing.
Marvin Jones, too.
Who do you have in mind then?
Sorry, I was just going to say Marvin Jones, too. 2 weeks every year, he's going to have that 3-touchdown, 200-yard game, which is always fun to hope for.
It's usually in Lambeau, too. So
right.
Maybe you can pull it out a few more times.
Every time he's in Lambeau.
Right.
Yeah. So, Trevor, who did you have in mind for a free agent then?
Man, it's really dependent for me on the draft, obviously, so I'll take a cop-out answer. I think if the Packers find somebody that they like in the draft at wide receiver, maybe later, obviously don't waste a first-round pick on it. But I've said it before, and he's a guy that flies under the radar, Jamal Agnew. As a receiver, I don't think he's going to get you a lot, but I mean, that special teams was probably the most pathetic special teams I've ever seen in my life. And he is a proven returner. And if he can even get you, a couple hundred receiving yards, that's a win. He's going to be cheap because he doesn't really do much as a wide receiver. So, you can shore up special teams, and who knows, maybe even get something out of him as a receiver for practically no money. So that's the guy that I'm looking at.
Another former Lion, poaching the pride.
That's what you got to do. You got to target Detroit players. Give them a way out. This isn't my answer, but another guy who I was thinking along those same sort of wavelengths with was Cordero Patterson. He can do something on offense, obviously. He has turned more into a running back in Chicago since he saw Bill Belichick do it like 4 times. Matt Nagy feels like that's the smartest way to go. But he's still a really good returner. Hey, let's poach another divisional guy, I guess. That would work too. The free agent I really want to go after, I don't think we necessarily need to go after wide receivers, just because I like the guys we have because of Aaron Rodgers. But Kevin Zeitler was just released today. Maybe he will take a hometown discount, come back to Wisconsin. Maybe he likes Green Bay. Maybe he's one of the dum-dums who does. He's made plenty of money everywhere he's gone. If we can get him at right guard, put Jenkins at left, or Jenkins could slide to the right tackle, that's fine too. I don't care who's in the backfield for running back. I don't care who Rodgers has to throw to because he's going to have 6-7 seconds. I think Zeitler's one of the best offensive guards in the league. Hopefully he's cheaper than what he should make, because if he, gets what he asked for from another team, it's out of the Packers price range, obviously, but you never know.
And two, to that point, or just in general, I feel, stacking up offensive linemen is never a bad option, because, they're getting hit every single play by huge fucking guys. So one of them is going to go down. Two of them are going to go down every year. It's never a bad idea to have, offensive linemen at your disposal.
If they could double dip re-sign Taylor and Zeitler, that might be your two starting guards week 1.
And I think we would be completely fine. I think Lane Johnson's really good. Obviously, I've gone. If he comes back 100%, I think he's amazing. If Bakhtiari comes back 100%, I don't think there's any doubt that we would have the best offensive line in the league. And, I've talked about how centers don't matter. So again, draft a rookie center in the 7th round. Do not care. They'll probably be top 5 Pro Football Focus grade next year if you have Zeitler and Jenkins, or Zeitler and Lane Johnson as the 2 guards next to him.
I mean, Lucas Patrick, we've seen him play center before, the one game against Detroit week 17 last year, but he looked the part. I mean, if that's your week 1 center, I think you can do much worse than that. So I'd be fine with Patrick there.
Yeah. Or we can target, who was it? There's some Vikings guy if we want to poach another divisional guy.
Yeah.
Reef? No, there's a different center that they released or as a free agent too. But it doesn't matter.
Okay.
He sucks, whoever it was. I can't remember. There's nobody good.
Yeah, do we want Vikings offensive linemen? I get Lions wide receivers. That seems like that's always been a strong suit of that team, but yeah.
That's fair.
We're staying within the division. We'll grab some Bears linebackers while we're at it too.
Please. Let's just grab the linebackers. Let's not ignore that at every single turn that we have. Is there any other guys that come to mind that you think the Packers should target? I have a lot of re-sign players that I would love for them to get, but in terms of outside guys, is there anybody else outside on your list?
If they can't reach an agreement with Jamal Williams in the vein of pass catching back, I know, Trevor, you were kind of maybe disparaging him a little bit, but I wouldn't mind seeing Kenyon Drake actually, especially considering the struggles last year. He'd come in cheaper, certainly cheaper than his franchise tag price last year, but I just see him as a pretty good compliment to AJ Dillon.
I only hate him because I drafted him in the 2nd round. That's pretty much it. That's where most I hate from. I was the biggest fan of Miami. So I like what he can do. If he comes to the Packers, I will be a fan. I'm just not going to touch him with a 10-foot pole. So
one of my favorite leagues I'm in, it's a salary cap contract league that's been going since 2015, and I drafted him in the rookie draft like 206, and been on my team ever since. I think I traded him away, but traded back for him because I needed him. So yeah, I've always been a big Kenyon Drake believer.
He would for sure be a good compliment. Like, I think he can do everything AJ Dillon can't. So, I mean, depending on the price tag, I think that makes sense. I did have a list of running backs I liked. I think they all pretty much went down the pass catching route. Other cheap guys I have on my list are James White, Rex Burkhead, Theo Riddick, or Duke Johnson. So,
my co-host Jesse really wants James White, so that would make him happy.
It'd make me happy too.
Theo Riddick, another line.
Perfect pass catcher too. That's all they do. That's all they do.
He probably has more receptions than carries in his career, so that would make sense.
Yeah,
it's
a wide
wild.
receiver for Notre Dame.
It's wild how many solid players the Lions have and just absolutely come out to nothing every single year.
Imagine that. Weird.
The one guy I'll throw out there, I'm going to do it till the cows come home. Dan Arnold, my guy. And it's actually realistic too, because unfortunately I don't think we're going to re-sign Mercedes Lewis. Tunyon is a question mark.
We will.
And if you can't get those guys, which I hope you can get one of them, we cannot live with DeGuara and Sternberger. They just no. So just get somebody who's athletic. He doesn't even have to be that good. Just somebody who can, catch a pass, and somebody who's, kind of athletic. And he's the cheapest option by far.
There isn't a big Dan Arnold market, you don't think?
Believe it or not, I don't think the guy who has 715 career receiving yards in 4 years exactly draws a big price point.
Speaking on kind of an athletic tight end, what are you guys' thoughts on Hunter Henry?
I think he's amazing. He's not coming to Green Bay. I think
I'd rather just have Jared Cook back.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Honestly, I'll go a step further. I'm going to make some enemies saying this. I'd rather have Jimmy Graham. I love Hunter Henry. He's on the field like 2 games a year. Like Tim Patrick
last year.
Sounds Luke. And Hunter Henry gets hurt. Like that's just other than last year. Last year he actually played a full season, but I can't trust that guy. Love him, but he just can't stay on the field.
I mean, as long as Jimmy Graham doesn't cost $11 million. I mean, if they get him for $1 million, I'm fine with that. $11 million?
One tight end I think is going under the radar, who I would love to get. I love this guy, is Delaney Walker. He took the year off just because he didn't want to deal with the COVID stuff. Obviously, he played under Matt LaFleur in Tennessee for that 1 year. Amazing blocker. I think if he comes back, he would be second to pretty much only Mercedes Lewis as a run blocking tight end in the league. Obviously, George Kittle's in that conversation, but I would love to have Delaney Walker. And he's obviously a great receiver as well.
I think there were rumors of that last year too, so I might connect there.
Yeah, I was going to bring up his receiving ability too. Didn't he have maybe 1 or 2 1,000-yard seasons in his career as well?
I think he had
there's a while he was the number one target.
Like 90 catches and stuff. So
he should have more too. I mean, he had 890 receiving yards in 2014, caught 63 out of 106 targets, 94 out of 133, 65 out of 102. If somebody can just get him the ball where he can actually make a play, dude's going to put up 1,000 4 seasons straight there.
He didn't really get to benefit from Tannehill going there. He mostly had to deal with Mariota.
Yeah.
Right. And hey, I know I've seen some interviews with him during this year on like Pat McAfee and some other places. He's gotten really into boat racing. So while it's not Florida, there's boat racing, I'm sure, in Green Bay for 1 month or something. So hey, Delaney, come to town.
Lake Michigan is hopping in the summer, man.
Hey, there we go. There we go. We don't need you boat racing during the season anyways. We're chasing a Lombardi. The only other offensive guy I wanted to talk about who I do think is doable, I'll stick with the lineman thing, is Joe Looney. He's been playing with Dallas for a few years. He's one of those guys who the Packers love to sign who are versatile across the offensive line. He's started at guard and center at numerous occasions for Dallas. I don't know how much money he's going to be paid, but obviously with the injuries the Packers have, having somebody who could start and move along the interior offensive line is super valuable. And he's got nice hair, which is cool. Big afro. Let's head to the defensive side of the ball. I think we'll probably have more to say on this side. I think we could probably all be in agreement with this is where the Packers should spend money if we have it. Defense has a lot of needs to fill. Kyle, is there any one free agent on the defensive side of the ball that pops out to you initially?
Well, I think there's one biggest need, I think, on this team overall, and it's outside corner. Who's going to be opposite Xavier Alexander? Yeah. An ideal world, and my co-host Jesse also wrote an article for Full Press Coverage, 5 free agent targets. Curtis Samuel was on that list. His number 2 player was William Jackson, cornerback from the Bengals.
Yes, thank you.
Wonder if is that going to be the price range they're at? I know Gutekunst came out, I think it was earlier this week or last week, saying if they want to go after someone, they'll find the money to do it, which is encouraging. I mean, you see what are they, $8 million under the cap right, or over the cap right now? But I think there's some restructure, some cutting that can get done to make that work. So they seem to feel confident if they got players to go after. And again, I think that's the biggest need. So if you're going to spend all that money somewhere, I think a guy like William Jackson, I believe he's 28, so right in the prime of his career, I think he's a perfect target.
With William Jackson too, I mean, there's some other corners that maybe we'll talk about later, but I feel it seems fairly obvious the Packers are moving on from Kevin King. So it seems that, they're going to have to grab a veteran or someone who's played a little bit and a rookie. And if you can grab a veteran, like William Jackson, who's still in that prime of the career, that works out perfectly. As you're not that step slow. You still have some recollection number 2 receivers.
Yeah, I think William Jackson could be like the James Bradbury of this free agent class. I don't think he's very expensive. I haven't looked at like projected price range. I would say, I think the whole being in Cincinnati brought down his price a lot. I think $7 million might be his max. I think there's a lot more expensive guys out there. But I did write down he allowed a 52.2% catch rate, which is obviously amazing. He had 14 defensive stops, 28 years old. William Jackson would be amazing as a number 2 guy. We just need somebody like with the new Joe Barry system. We're going to be sending like fucking 8 guys after the quarterback every time. Like we need to thrive on having corners that can match up in man and actually perform. And he's one of those guys who could do it.
A corner who can cover downfield. Imagine that.
And his contract right now, I mean, calculated market value around 6.3. And I think it could be even lower with the cap. There's some big names that, like always, there are going to be multiple teams that throw money at big names, even though they don't have a ton left. And I think it's just going to drive it down. But we can. Kevin King, I'm sure he'd be cheap too. So keep that in mind.
You think so?
I mean, I don't know how much he's earned that last game, especially. Short memory.
Yeah. Okay, somebody else talk. I hate Kevin King so damn much. I don't even want to bring.
If they can't afford William Jackson, I wonder. Okay, back to former Vikings, but and a teammate of Jackson's, Mackenzie Alexander. I don't know how viable this is, just because he signed the kind of the 1-year prove it deal coming off the rookie contract last year, and so he's probably looking more long term. But I do wonder if the Packers maybe think, kind of what Trevor was saying, sign one and draft a corner as well. So if they're going with that, you maybe want the shorter term contract with the corner. Xavier Rhodes, does that bridge it over 1 year enough? You still got Jair Alexander on the rookie contract. It kind of leads to that extension needed. You get Rhodes until then, and then kind of hope by that point, whoever presuming they draft a corner early this year, they're ready to step up there. So I wonder if Rhodes seemed to improve a lot better in 2020 than he was in 2019. So I think I don't know if that maybe upped his price too far to where the Packers will be. But again, I think he's 30. So again, once that 3 is not a 2, that suddenly makes the dollar amounts go down.
Yeah, Xavier Rhodes was number 2 on my list right after William Jackson. I don't think he's going to be too high, but I mean, just talking about the same stats that we talked about with William Jackson, he allowed a 51.3% catch rate with the Colts. Obviously, he played against some really shitty teams in the AFC South there, but he was really, really good. 2 interceptions, 10 pass breakups, 3.3 yards after the catch allowed on average. So if he does allow a catch, he's going to tackle him. It's not like Kevin King who runs the opposite direction. Like, this guy is always right there. He's really good. And he feels slighted by the Vikings. I know he does. He said it multiple times. They thought he couldn't play anymore. Getting to play Mike Zimmer twice a year, getting to play Kirk Cousins twice a year. I think Xavier Rhodes would jump at that chance. The guy just needs to compete for a ring, and we know he can play in the cold. I think this would be a really, really good pairing. To your point, I don't know where his price has risen. I think he's probably more expensive than William Jackson, but I don't think he's going to break the bank this year.
Yeah, and at the same time, even if he has lost a little bit, he's playing opposite of Jair Alexander. So I would assume confidence-wise that helps it skyrocket. And the one thing that made him, obviously it wasn't just this, but his confidence made him so good too. He started losing that step. He started getting burned more. Now, I'm not saying he steps on the field, thinks he's the greatest and turns into the greatest of all time, but it does have to deal with something. And he'll come back to Green Bay knowing he's on a good team, knowing that if he gets burned, he's not screwed. And knowing that their offense is at least somewhat competent to make up for that. I mean, that's something he really hasn't had, to be honest.
Agreed. Trevor, is there somebody outside of those top two corners there that you have your eye on?
One's kind of okay. This one's kind of serious, kind of not. Jamal Williams. I just kind of want to see how much longer we can put him on the field. Like at this point, like he's still got something. Like I mean, yeah, why not? I guess. But there's not a guy that I really see here that really jumps out to me. Because I think there are some guys that are going to get overpaid for sure. But you know, I'd go draft. Obviously, not as your only guy. You got to pick somebody up. You can't throw a rookie in there. But you know, draft. I think I just have a feeling we haven't heard about a lot of cornerbacks. At least I haven't. I feel like this got to be one of those years where some guys fall under the radar because we have not had a good cornerback year in a while.
I hope we get Asante Samuel Jr. That's the corner I want. I think he would be very, very, very good.
Where did he go to college?
Florida State,
reason,
was it?
Florida State is what popped into my mind.
To your credit, Trevor. Sorry, Zach. I think with I wanted to see more Jamal Williams last year. I mean, they brought him on in the playoff run at the end, and then Will Redmond was still on the field as that like fifth DB all the time. And just why couldn't William play those snaps? So if Jamal Williams is back, I'm fine with that. I think the one thing that you know maybe determines things for the Packers is, are they tendering Chandon Sullivan? Considering his PFF grade, which I thought was a little harsh. I thought he played better than what PFF graded him out as. I didn't think he and Kevin King deserved to be at the same bottom tier echelon. But I mean, if they decide not to tender him, suddenly they need a starting nickel corner. But if they do tender him and you know, as a restricted free agent, they probably can cost control that low enough. You kind of take that element of, okay, we don't need the nickel spot. It really is the perimeter corner to focus on. But I mean, a guy like William, you can't not want to bring him back, right? I'm all for it.
And to your point about Chandon Sullivan, when I saw that third down play early in the first quarter, jump ball, he got a piece of it, played it perfectly, and it fell right to the receiver. Like that's something I feel like PFF takes into accountability, and I just felt so bad for him. It's like that should not be on him. So to your point, that was a very harsh grade.
He didn't have the greatest game, I thought, in the NFC Championship game. He had a lot of catches, but I mean, still pretty good tackler. I mean, I think he kind of clapped back saying his longest reception all year was 27 yards, and I'm pretty sure that was Adam Thielen week 1, if I'm not mistaken. So I thought as the season went on, he got better. Obviously, it was I guess playing against Tom Brady, that's always going to be the toughest test, and he wasn't quite up for it. But if he's the starting nickel next year, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with bringing Chandon Sullivan back, especially because of the price it's going to cost. Like, I think the Packers are sort of forced to no matter what, but I do think he's good enough, especially if he develops. I don't think he developed it all last year, and there's a lot of things that go into that. Obviously, no offseason program, in person, stuff like that. He's one of the people that really got hurt by it. Josh Jackson's another person who really got hurt by it. I think Chandon Sullivan will be back, and he showed 2 years ago that he could be good, so I think he's fine for nickel, but to your point, we need to focus on outside corner, and we can't just. I guess I personally wouldn't feel comfortable drafting a rookie and throwing a rookie opposite of Jair Alexander week 1.
Showtime Sullivan's also a great nickname.
He was Showtime too, so him or Aaron Jones have to go. One of them have to go. They can't have 2 Showtimes.
Later, Aaron
One
Jones.
One of them had a Y in it though, so it's different.
Jones did, yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Luke, do you have a free agent you have your eye on?
I was taking a look. You sent us over the rundown for it, and I was trying to look at inside backers here. There's not a whole lot that I like for inside backers. Avery Williamson is a player out there. I don't know how much money he's going to expect, how much we can pay for him, but I mean, Avery Williamson, if we can make it happen, I'd love to have him. I was just talking about this with someone at the bar. The Packers haven't had a good inside linebacker since it feels like A.J. Hawk. If they can grab, a solid veteran, a guy who's fast enough to run both sides of the field, who can blitz with Joe Barry's packages and who can cover, I mean, I think that's that'll be a big help to the secondary, especially. So I mean, Avery Williamson looks like the best inside backer out there. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts about that, but to me, that's who looks like the best out there.
I think he's probably the best out there. I honestly have no idea if the Packers would pay for him. He's certainly going to ask for more money than some of the other guys.
Right.
I don't know what the Packers are going to do. Like, to your point, Kyle, you said that Gutekunst is like, if we see someone we like, we can clear the money to get them. I don't trust their ability to scout players, so maybe they're going to pay somebody, but it's going to be somebody like they're going to pay Christian Kirksey again or something. Like, they're going to make the stupidest move possible, I feel like. I can't. I'm going to try to trust them. I don't think they're going to pay inside linebacker, though. I think they've learned their mistake there.
It doesn't seem like it's a position he really wants to invest in, right? I mean, like, they waited Kamal Martin late. Chris Barnes is undrafted free agent, and so they seem like they were fine with that. Ty Summers, the 7th round pick last year, this is fine. We're fine with this linebacking room. And I mean, again, it's working. I mean, they've had 13-win seasons the last 2 years, so Gutekunst, he's got to be thinking there's at least some success with what I'm doing. So it's not. We may disparage some of that, but I mean, the formula's been there, so he'll trust that.
I just feel like something's got to be brewing here. Like, it's just too quiet. Like, granted, the Packers are never loud and audacious, right? But there's always like, oh, they're going to do this. They're going to do that. Like, you know it. Granted, we know they're going to do some stuff. But there's still a lot of money and a lot of moves that I just feel like we're just sitting and waiting. And for me, either the front office doesn't know what they're going to do, which is horrifying, or they got something they're trying to pull off. And for my own mental state, I gotta go that way, that they're thinking of some big brain play, but it just seems way too quiet right now.
I will say too, as far as inside backers go, having Jair Alexander basically be able to lock down one side of the field really helps Adrian Amos play like that linebacker safety kind of role, to play up in the run a little bit. I don't know if they're thinking that way too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know today I think the Saints announced they released Quan Alexander, so I wonder if that's maybe a target they can go after from that linebacking perspective.
I would like it. I would love it if they paid a linebacker, went after somebody with actual talent, someone who's not Christian Kirksey, something like that. I would love it. One name that I have written down, I would assume he's cheap again, and I guess I'm going to stick with my theme of taking NFC North players. Todd Davis, he signed a 1 year, I think just $1 million prove-it deal with the Vikings last year, and he didn't really prove it just because that defense was so bad. He's not an amazing coverage linebacker, but he's pretty good against the run, and he was great with Denver. I think he's plenty worth signing, especially if he's in that $1 million range again. We might as well.
Honestly.
Right, yeah, because Avery Williamson and Quan Alexander aren't going for $1 million.
No, they are not. Another guy who was a Packer, Joe Thomas, I have him too. He played at Dallas for a few years now. Again, he's not going to be a splash landing, but if we get people to just fill in roles, like he's a run stopper, he's a thumper. Obviously, that's all Joe Barry cares about anyways, just from anything he's ever done. So I would assume that's what they go after in free agency, is just players who make tackles for losses, and that's about it.
Was Joe Thomas's dad the one who went back to college and played a snap and became the oldest player to play a college snap?
That sounds familiar. I think you're right. What a feat. Good for him.
Going back to Quan Alexander, he did make a lot of money this past year, but I think his injury history can also help the price get down. Torn ACL in 2018, torn pectoral 2019, bicep tear 2020. He went through surgery in the offseason, and he's getting up there, and with a low salary cap, I feel like it's almost a perfect storm.
I have an interesting name to throw out, and I want to know if you guys would be in favor of it or not. He's played in Joe Barry's system. He knows Green Bay, can play inside, outside. Clay Matthews. What's your thoughts on bringing him back? I would assume it would be cheap. And before last season, he sounded like he still wanted to play. What's your thoughts on bringing Clay back to kind of fill multiple roles?
Clay's a tough son of a bitch, man. I know, he wants to play football. He comes from a football family. It'd be a great, I think the fans would love him back in Green Bay. I would love him. He's one of my favorite Packers of all time. And he does have a little bit of that experience, playing that inside backer role with the Packers, whether that was the right decision to do it or not. I mean, I would be all for it. You can't imagine he can ask for a lot of money. It feels like he hasn't played well since he left the Packers. But, why not take a flyer on him if you're going to get him cheap?
I think especially if they do end up releasing Preston Smith. I know they've kind of come out and said that they're planning to keep him, but I kind of feel like if they don't restructure him, they might walk away from him. So that kind of that third edge rusher, he can come in and kind of as a rotation. I think that would fit probably perfectly.
Yeah, and it's great for the Packer fans that aren't looking in depth as much, because if you're Goot, it's a win-win. You make them happy and you act like you're doing something while you really haven't fixed the problem at all. It's kind of a win-win when you're strapped for cash. Plus, maybe he'll make a good play here or there. I'm sure he wants to certainly prove it.
Yeah, as long as he's super cheap. Like if we have to pay anything substantial for him, obviously there's no point. If we do move on from Preston Smith, I really don't think we're going to. I think we should. I don't think we're going to. He could just be like a multi-rotational player where he can play early down sometimes on the inside. Sometimes he comes in and is a specialized pass rusher on 3rd and long on the outside with sand in the dirt or whatever. I think it would just be, if we don't go after Clay, I think we need to go after somebody like that. With no money, we need to fill multiple roles at once right now, unfortunately.
And I think in a sense, Joe Barry's system, the exotic blitzing, that season that he did play inside linebacker, he also blitzed from there and was actually able to do it quite successfully. So that's another thing that they can maybe not telegraph so many things. And you think he might be out there in coverage, and really he's coming at from the A gap and as a kind of a overloading the inside, so that strategically they can kind of move him around as a fool the offense type of piece.
Completely agree. Just a couple other corner names to go back to that I have written down. One was Ronald Darby, played with Washington last year, 54.4% catch rate allowed, 15 pass breakups, 3.1 yards after the catch, 15 run stops. If the Packers can pay up for him, I think he would be terrific. And then Jason Verrett, I think, is going to be fairly cheap from the 49ers. 2 interceptions. Didn't have a great year. 6 pass breakups, 11 defensive stops, 76.3 passer rating when targeted. But I would argue he was in the worst position on the worst defense out of the cornerbacks we've named on the 49ers last year, just because of all those injuries and stuff. I just think we need to pay up for an outside corner. I don't think it's something we can ignore anymore. Do you guys have any other free agents you want to talk about?
I don't know. Trevor, you kind of hit it before when we were talking about the offense, like a Jamal Agnew. I don't know if you try to grab maybe just a return guy cheap. I know they tried with Tavon Austin this year.
Try?
Yeah, maybe not. But one of my favorite college players of all time is D'Anthony Thomas. He sat out last year for COVID. He's a free agent this year. I can imagine, there's going to be a lot of money there. So I think you take a flyer on a guy who can make some flashes in the return game.
Or just, it doesn't have to be free agency. Get a new punter. Seriously, just anybody, literally anybody. It's, when you're playing a field position game, that's going to help the defense a lot when they're not playing from the 50 because of a 40-yard punt if Rodgers goes 3 and out. So it's just, you got to fix that too somewhere. Probably the draft, though, or just a, undrafted free agent.
That's an interesting market because there's so many punters, veteran punters that are getting released right now. I almost wonder if they're going to be willing to take 1-year deals to chase a ring really quick and just wait for next year when the market opens back up. Because if the Packers get like Thomas Morstead, that'd be awesome. That'd be amazing. The Packers could get Pat McAfee. That'd be great. Like, just get somebody. If we're going to get rid of Jamal Williams as a chemistry locker room guy, let's at least get Pat in there to fuck shit up a little bit.
You know, right?
We just need
Aaron
somebody. Yeah, everybody likes. Let's bring AJ Hawk back too. Get the whole show.
I don't know if they'll let him smoke cigars in the locker room.
Maybe. Well, if they're not going to get allow smoking, Pat probably won't come back either, though.
So I think we all agree corners are the number one priority. I think the number two priority, I think there could be a couple. Maybe you look at wide receiver, though. I think on this podcast, it's nice and refreshing to not hear that the Packers desperately need wide receivers for one of their all-time great quarterbacks who makes every receiver look good. So I think outside of that, offensive line and defensive line, it's all in the trenches, right? And I think we've spoke about the offensive line, the versatility that both Turner and Jenkins offer. You don't have to go after a specific guy. Just get the best offensive lineman. Get versatile guys if you can. On the defensive line, I think it's very specific. And what they haven't had the last 2 seasons is a Mike Daniels-esque true run-stuffing defensive end or defensive tackle, however they want to line that up, however Barry wants to do it. But that guy next to Kenny Clark, that'll really help specifically on running downs. Maybe Mike Daniels is that guy. He'll be a free agent. I wonder, though, in the vein of, I think we've mentioned a few times, the players coming off injuries that'll lower their price down. Solomon Thomas, I think with all those injuries, I don't think the 49ers are going to be able to keep him considering all the players that they're going to want to pay. And I don't know that his market's there. I think last year was going to maybe be a big year for him. No DeForest Buckner. It was his chance to prove he can be that impact guy in the middle. And then he gets hurt, so he never really has shown that. And maybe some team, some scout or some GM is still hanging on to that draft pedigree that got him taken 3rd overall. But if that's not the case, I wonder if the Packers swoop in and can pick him up.
You would think if his price is any bit higher than like a mid-tier contract, it's purely based on potential, right? Because he's shown nothing so far, to your point. It'd be great to get somebody like that in there. But yeah, another run stopper I have my eye on is Jonathan Hankins. His career was basically destroyed by John Gruden in Las Vegas, Oakland. He was unbelievable before then. He was still decent with the Raiders, even though that defense was one of the worst I've ever seen for years. And he could still ball. Like, he's going to get a contract from somebody that's not going to be substantial. $2-3 million, maybe more. But if they're basing it on what he's done lately, the past few years, it's not going to be much. And if he can go next to Kenny Clark, he's a guy that can apply pressure, and he can certainly stop the run. He'd be great.
And you can find that $3 million from getting rid of Dean Lowry. That is $3 million right there. Dean Lowry or Jonathan Hankins for $3 million. Not even close. But looking at the list of defensive linemen, there are a lot of. Granted, it's not just a name. You don't get a name of a guy who is good. They don't automatically turn out great. But there are a lot of big names here, and when there are big names there, somebody's going to fall under the radar. Either a guy who's a big name who people think is done, or a guy that hasn't really made a lot of noise yet. There are going to be some guys that fall through the cracks, and you just hope that you find the right one, whoever that may be.
And somewhere, BJ Raji is still waiting to return. He's just been waiting for another Super Bowl run, and I think this is it. I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's alive. But if you are listening, please come back, because I need to dust off your jersey. It's the last Packer jersey I ever bought. Please come back.
Well, that's one of those things, though, because he never left, right? Like, he's still always been a Packer the whole time. So even when he's retired, you can kind of, he was part of a Super Bowl. You can still wear that. You don't need him to come back to have that.
Oh, I wear it.
Yeah. Nice. I wonder, in the vein of guys that are really cheap, there's got to be zero market for Montravis Adams, right? And I mean, I think a couple weeks ago we talked about that on the Full Press Packers pod of they could probably get him back 2 years, $2 million. That's probably the highest contract he's ever going to get. And again, a rotational guy. Does Kingsley Keke step up this year? If not, at least have that as kind of another body that you can bring in on the field. And I mean, and to your point, Trevor, if you're going to have someone kind of be irrelevant, why not just save the $3 million from Dean Lowry and have a cheaper guy be irrelevant and can kind of disappear for most of the game?
Somewhere Janet is crying that her fill-in likes Montrevious Adams. I like him too. I don't get what the thing is.
Me too.
I feel like he can be good, and at the very least, for that amount of money. I mean, people waste $15 million a year. You waste $1 million a year on a guy who could be good and is cheap. I mean, why not? And he's from Auburn, so he's got the SEC thing going for him. If he was playing from Mountain West, Big Sky, okay, yeah, cut him loose. But he's not. He wasn't playing against bums in college either. So,
you guys remember Howard?
It's good.
Sorry, it just came to the top of my head here. You guys remember Howard? Howard Green. Howard Green. He was a big fucking guy when the Packers won the Super Bowl. Big defensive tackle. Oh man. Okay.
Don't.
Maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
Who is this dude?
I mean, he's got a name to be in Green Bay if his name is Green, so.
I think
Football
that
nose tackle. He's
Here he is. He is a
42
big
right
dude.
now. Oh my
340,
God.
6'2".
yeah, that guy was awesome
How do you remember this guy?
because I loved him so much. That guy was fucking awesome.
He
He
was the
is
one who hit
one
Ben
punch man.
Roethlisberger's arm to force that interception. Interesting.
All right. Key play.
He has 1 sack in his career, 97 tackles, 4 forced fumbles, and he played for what? From 2002 to 2011? So that's
He played alongside B.J. Raji. Could you imagine running against that? Like,
Right.
Good luck. Sit down. They can't move you. That's incredible.
maybe somewhere in overlooking the ocean, they're just having a sumo match,
On Fight Island.
That's why we haven't seen from them, because the sumo match is lasting so long because neither of them are moving. They're just staying there. And okay, guys, you want to get back to football? No, we got to finish this first. We'll see you in 5 years.
That's right. Nick Collins, Jermichael Finley is just sitting there with some tiki drink too, just watching, chilling on some beach. I'm sure it's a great time. Any other free agents we need to bring up here, special teams, defense, or offense that we may have missed beforehand?
Can we get Jeff Janis back?
No.
So,
I'm sure we could.
Johnny Jolly, baby. Johnny Jolly, bring him home.
special
He might
teams
actually be in
demigod.
jail. Is he in jail?
He was. I'm not sure if he still is. He was another very large man for the Packers.
Packers had another large defensive tackle right after Johnny Jelly. I can't remember who it was, but I just remember he got busted in town with like 100 pounds of weed and $10,000 and 2 firearms in his car.
Yeah, that happens.
You got to be
Yeah.
more specific. That's like one Packer every offseason. So you got to narrow it down for us here.
Yeah, no kid. Every offseason. It was the Darius Smith a couple years ago, and nothing came of that. I still have no idea how, but that's fine. He had like a trunk full. He had like 5 other teammates in the car with him, and he took the blame for it all. Like, what are you doing? He was like practice squad guys. Like, blame it on them.
That's a team player. That's a team player right there.
Maybe on Dean Lowry.
It's a bad decision maker.
I'm playing on Dean Lowry.
Lowry.
That's good.
That would make sense why he's so slow and he can't move.
LaTroy Guion
I
was
think
Oh yeah,
Guion.
yeah.
He was a
Troy
big guy.
Guion.
Let's end on that note. Kyle, thanks for joining us. Let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
So on Twitter, you can follow me at Senra Says. So podcasts, I'm at the Full Press Fantasy Pod. So at FPC_Fantasy Pod, Full Press Packers Pod, everything Full Press Packers, everything Full Press covers Packers at FPC_Packers. At Going for Two is so Going for Two is a website I do write for and also do some live streams with. Usually Monday in season. I'll live stream a pregame show, and it's carried over. One of my co-hosts and I basically alternate weeks. Every Monday, every 2 weeks, we have live shows. I do a show called Press Coverage. I interview people in the fantasy industry, less about their content, more about the people behind the content, and getting to know people, how they got into fantasy sports, how they fell in love with football, things that maybe the fantasy community doesn't know about them. Some fantasy talk as well, of course. Always got to bring that in. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with that. So yeah, check out everything Going for Two at Going for Two and at Going for Two Live.
Definitely go check all of that stuff out. If you're watching the video, you can see all of our Twitter handles. Go follow us, follow the Lombardi Sweep Facebook page and Twitter account, and we will be with you guys next time. Later.